Now, from waterlogged pitches to record rainfall, extreme weather is making it increasingly difficult for us to live healthy and active lives. That's according to a warning from Sport England.
Comes as the agency that funds community sport projects launches a new package of investment to help organisations battle the effects of climate change. Our sports editor, Dan Rowan, has this report.
Whalley Range under-11s finally playing again after a late start to their season. One of the wettest UK winters on record has meant cricket matches up and down the country have had to be cancelled. This a scene that's become all too familiar over the past 3 years as the club's ground in Manchester has become waterlogged.
I've never known anything like this. We've just not been able to get on the ground because it's been so wet. It's been unrelenting.
When it gets rained off, it's really annoying.
Last year it was just nearly every game was called off. It was really frustrating.
There was 6 games at least in a row, back to back, rained off.
But clubs like this could now benefit from £45 million that funding agency Sport England is making available to help them battle climate change by becoming more sustainable as part of a new strategy. It's found that 3 in 5 adults say extreme weather has had a negative impact on their ability to be active across various sports.
They play cricket here every week and they've been subject. They had once in a 100-year flooding back in 2016, and then 2017 it wasn't once in 100 years, it was again, and so on and so on. It became the norm. The FA found that there's 120,000 games cancelled every year because of flooded pitches. We will require for funding that everybody to have a sustainability strategy by 2027.
Some may question whether the money would be better spent providing more all-weather facilities.
Have you had to take money away from other budgets, pots, in order to put it in towards this?
I think it needs to be a part of. If we put money into, helping clubs become more sustainable, so then that is an investment in the future because their bills become sustainable.
And here at Whalley Range, they're already making a difference, from installing solar panels on the pavilion roof to a rewilding programme on the outfield.
Does all sorts of things well for the wildlife, but also they suck up water. As you can see, there's blossom on here. We have to think very hard about how we keep this cricket club going as a place to play sport for the next 20 or 30 years. And one of the things we do is we plant all these trees and have this biodiversity, because these trees actually soak up the water in the summer, which means we've got more chance of being able to play the game.
Meanwhile, Worcestershire Cricket Club admits it may have to move from its historic New Road ground because of what it called unprecedented and increasingly regular flooding. Manchester United were forced into a clean-up operation earlier this week after Old Trafford struggled to cope when a month's worth of rain fell in just 2 hours. Clubs at all levels now being impacted by extreme weather conditions. Dan Rowan, BBC News.
Lots to talk about there. Then the Olympic champion cyclist and chair of Sport England, Chris Boardman, joins us now. I mean, we saw some of the footage there. You'll have seen many more examples of it. We've heard from the audience this morning. This is an established problem in every community.
It is, yeah, and they've taken some fantastic action there. I mean, simple things like planting trees. It's amazing, isn't it, how often the simple things are actually part of the solution. So planting trees, rewilding, suck up some groundwater to leave space for the more intense rain that we're getting now. I love the fact that they've got solar panels to cool the beer as well. So they've really thought this one through.
Yeah.
But then we're hearing that in some clubs they were saying that 70% of matches have had to be cancelled. Yeah. And it's annoying, and for the kids, if it's a youth club, that's really dispiriting, isn't it? And a real problem, because it means week in, week out they're not getting the exercise that you would wish.
Football's just one example, and it being the biggest sport, it's the biggest example. But the FA did some work last year that showed there's 120,000 games a year being lost to flooding. And if you think about that, the weekend footy with the kids, it's cancelled, we'll go and do something else. Yeah. And there's other people that aren't active on activities that are vying for your time, and so people are getting less active, and now that's becoming prominent.
It's so true. Kids get out of routine so easily. It just takes a couple of cancellations and then the weekend looks very different. Talk to us about this funding that's been made available then, because there is a carrot and a stick element to it.
I've got really involved in this because and it sounds a bit hyperbolic, but we are the first generation to truly understand this, and we are the last generation to be able to do something about it. And sport, I think, is uniquely, sport physical activity sector is uniquely placed to do something about it because we are embedded in people's communities. We are emotionally attached. And if the sporting community get together and say, right, we are going to make change. We're going to move from informing and inspiring to enabling and requiring, then I think we can make a difference. And it will start to get really uncomfortable, positive peer pressure to not be standing with that group. So I think there's a big job for us to do. So we've already put in 60 million into swimming pools, so insulation, solar panels, heat pumps to make them sustainable so they can lower bills now, but also make them sustainable going forward. And now we're topping that up with another 40 million to actually help people get to the point where they know what their own emissions are and to do something about it. So to your point about moving forward, by 2027, it will be a requirement of funding. But that's also, excitingly, what the sector wants. 82% of them said, we want you to be bold and lead. So we have and we are.
The reality check here is that, all-weather facilities is a great solution, isn't it? Because you can play no matter what. But they're incredibly expensive. And for most, team sport...
They're also made of plastic.
Also made of plastic, so there are problems with that. But for if there's a ground which is multiple pitches, that's just not a reality anyway, is it?
Well, grass just takes a battering, and the more it rains, the less you can use it, which is the problem. So first of all, we have to do something to protect that, to stop the flooding, to mitigate. We're working with the Football Foundation on things like 3G pitches, so incredibly useful because they're so resilient, but they're made of plastic. We can't yet recycle them properly. Underneath, there's rubber crumb, crushed car tyres, millions of tons of the stuff. So the tension is we can't say, right, we're not going to stop doing that tomorrow because we'll lose huge amounts of exercise in the places that most need it. But what we can do is say, right, we're going to move towards, at this point, we will transition away from that. And everybody has time to move. So we're doing things like looking at crushed olive pips and different infill materials that are being tested right now in Sheffield to give us that alternative.
Speed is of the essence, isn't it? And I'm just thinking, if I ran, say, a Saturday morning football club, which I'm slowly being sucked into at the moment with my son, what changes could I make this week to get the ball rolling? No pun intended.
Well, the simple stuff, I mean, the stuff that we do occasionally now, like lift sharing, because transport's a massive emitter, particularly around football, which just simply because it involves the most people. So transport, reusable stuff, all the stuff around it. I think the term I know the term aggregation of marginal gains was thought up not far from here by British Cycling. The point where you just do lots of small things and you bring them together, it makes a meaningful difference. And that's what we have to do, but do it as a habit rather than occasional.
I can remember, Chris, I'm sure you can, watching sports events years and years ago where football, even top league football, was played on mud baths.
Yeah.
I mean, why? Is it a silly question to ask? Why is it a problem? You can still do it, can't you? We've become accustomed to perfect pitches, haven't we?
I think the difficulty we face, I mean, because it is all difficult. There's absolutely no doubt about it. It is difficult, but climate change doesn't care. It just is. And so we have to face difficult, and that's where we've been for the last few years, is like, oh, it's really difficult. Yeah, we definitely want to do something anyway, and we have to stop that now. We've got to move forward. So there are answers, but if those answers are not sustainable, then some things we're going to have to stop or do an awful lot less of.
Which would be a crying shame, wouldn't it, for everybody? While you're here, can we just ask you about this potential change in the law being backed by government so that dangerous cyclists face the same punishment as dangerous drivers? Does it feel appropriate?
I'm really uncomfortable with this, and I'll tell you why. And I've sat here before and discussed it. My mother was crushed to death by a driver, and that day there was 4 other people. And the day after, there was another 5 people, and so on. Yesterday, I think there's a young boy may have been killed in Birmingham while he was walking, and then there'll be another 4, and then today there'll be another 5. Cyclists, there are more people killed by lightning and cows. So, absolutely, everybody should obey the laws of the road. Why not? But I'm frustrated that the focus on something that is so good for society and joyous is getting so much focus in a negative way, when I'd rather be sitting here talking to you about how do we save that young lad. How do we save 5 lives a day? 30,000 people are killed or seriously injured on our roads every year. There's less than 3 involving a cyclist.
I suppose the argument, though, is that the hope would be that the fact that the law changed to this degree it focuses the minds of what people see as irresponsible, those cyclists who are irresponsible.
There's absolutely no question that if everybody faces penalties for their behaviour on the road and has a duty to look after others, the point is, what impact will it have when you're in the same rails as lightning and cows? So I don't have any problem with it, but there's other things I think I'd really like to be talking about that would do a lot of good.
You don't feel it should be a priority at the moment?
Chris, thank you very much.
Thank you.